Hello and welcome. Hold on. There we go. Wait. All right. Hello and welcome to this double special episode of Seven Story Podcast. First, we had our first simultaneous interview with co-authors, and now I have my high school teacher here, Miss Paris. And before I get to the introduction, I gotta tell this story. I'm gonna tell it off the rip. So it was like 10 years ago. I mean, well,
Yeah.
10 years ago. Well, 11 because we didn't graduate yet. So like 11 years ago. Dang, 11 years since I've been in high school. But anyway,
Yeah.
it was 11 years ago, and I think Miss Paris was leaving, to go pursue a different career path, the one that she's on now as a life
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah.
And because the students didn't want her to go, they ended up, tying her to the chair. And it was like, no, don't go, don't go. They're just wrapping around the chair and stuff like that. It's just like
Yeah.
I'm sitting there like, yeah, okay. And then who does she elect to, go to the office and tell the assistant principal?
It was
And
you.
like she's like, hey, Josiah, go to the office and tell them what's happening here. I'm like, wow, me. And then I was like, all right, I gotta get up, and then then they try to stop me from leaving the room too. I'm like, all right,
That's right.
I had to lie to her, like, hey, look, I'm just gonna get some water. Like, I ain't no snitch. I'm gonna go get some water. Then I go right to the office and tell them what's happening there. They
Hmm.
rush in, and then the whole thing gets dispersed, and I'm just like, and they're like, oh, nobody talked to him. Nobody, we're gonna ostracize. And I'm like, okay, I'm already ostracized. There's no difference. But yeah, that's just a little story that So I had to introduce Miss Paris and how much she
Oh.
means, to this particular interview and Bushwick in general. So, but you know, introduce yourself, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Well, first of all, I have to thank Josiah. He was always a star. So when Josiah means ostracized, or when he says it rather, for me that means that he was just elevated. He was an eagle soaring above the others. He was just his thinking was next level. His productivity and his creativity were always at the highest levels, and he was always true to himself. And that's the kind of integrity I always respect, that type of character when someone can be who they are and love themselves. And Josiah was that ideal student in the sense that he was who he was, and he loved to learn. Josiah is a lifelong learner, and the way he synthesizes information and the way he analyzes it and breaks it down for other students. He was one of my favorite peer tutors. I would have him explain things in class. And let me backtrack a little bit. I was teaching RSJ and bioethics in Bushwick from I want to say 2011 to in total, I think 2017. It was a while, but the content that we studied we focused on the Tuskegee study and scientific racism, which was the foundation for the Tuskegee study. And scientific racism is using pseudoscience or false science to claim that BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color are inferior to white people. And of course, this science was created by European scientists, and it's not even a science. It was based on very non-scientific studies of facial features,
Oh yeah, it was
and
eugenics.
that's right, facial features and how our ancestors sustained themselves through agriculture and different things. But there was no scientific study. It was used to justify slavery and dehumanization because they used scientific racism to claim that our ancestors were not human beings. And that is the foundation for everything that is happening in this country right now. If you look at the history of this country, every legal document, rather, the founding documents of this country, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, have certain clauses and sections of these documents claiming that Black, Indigenous, and people of color are not human beings. For example, the 3/5 clause states that our ancestors were 3/5 of a human being. And every foundation, every policy, every law that comes out of this country, the laws that created Jim Crow, the voting laws, everything is based on the presupposition that our ancestors, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, are not human beings. And what scientific racism does is it justifies these laws that were created. And scientific racism also led to the creation of human zoos, which were found throughout Europe, in this country. And our ancestors, as well as people from South America, South Asia, were on display in Europe and other predominantly white countries as people who were not human. And even in the Bronx Zoo, there was an exhibit, Otabenga, where people would come and see and look at Otabenga, who was of small stature because he was a pygmy, and observe him, look at him. He was on exhibit like as if he were an animal. And that's the furthest thing from the truth, because as we all know, as I learned, and as people have tried to disprove, that Africa was the cradle of civilization. And in my course, which I further developed, I also taught that our ancestors traveled to the Americas centuries before Columbus. And as well as Native Americans, Native people also traveled to Africa. There was this cross cultural exchange centuries before Columbus.
Mm.
And yeah, and that's what we've seen, is that our history specifically, has been stolen or rewritten to assert that the European race is superior, and it is not. It is completely without merit. But this is the world we're living in now. And of course, there are some people who will claim that what I'm saying is not true, but all people have to do is research. You have to find the history, you have to find the research, because it's being erased and wiped out. And pretty soon in schools, we will not even be able to talk about slavery.
Right.
That's Project 2025. I mean, and that's why when I think about Josiah and the students that I taught, I have nothing but the fondest memories, because I was able to teach something that that mattered, that was completely relevant, and something that empowered my students to focus on their rich cultural heritage and who they are, and the fact that they can do anything, absolutely anything they want. And Josiah's podcast right now is proof of that. And I'm so proud of you.
All right. That's high praise. Much appreciated. All right. So there you have it. I know. Bushwick stand up.
That's right, Bushwick,
Oh
all
man.
day.
Alrighty. So I think you kind of told us, a little bit about, yourself and what you
Hmm.
do. So let's gonna get to like your work. So like what
Sure.
inspired your first, work? Like I think the
Mm.
uh the course that you just described was what got you into it, but what was the element
Hmm.
that got you into writing it and putting it in the book?
Gosh, I've always been a writer. I grew up writing short stories, poetry, anything. And what really got me into writing was my life experiences. And the book that I published, here it is, Happiness Handbooks.
Hey, all right.
Happiness Handbooks. That's really based on my experience as a woman, right? As a woman of color in this country, in this world, and navigating relationships, professional challenges, as well as really the mindset, my mind, mastering my mindset. And I say that because I'm a firm believer, and this is something I constantly work at, is that my mind shapes my reality, meaning that the thoughts that I have and being constantly aware of them and mindful and vigilant. And when I say vigilant, I mean turning them around. So my goal or my practice is always to catch myself in my thoughts. Like, what are my thoughts? If I find myself thinking negatively about a situation, I turn it around. I turn it around. And I present different ways of turning our thoughts around in my book. And really, the book has different sections in it where you can write in it or recite certain things. For example, here's one everyone loves, right? They're to focus on their appearance. So here you can say something positive about your appearance, and it's called an appearance appraisal. So you
Mm.
say something like you describe your eyes, the physical characteristic, my eyes are, and then you say something positive about them, a positive evaluation. My eyes are extraordinary because. So everything that I do, really, even if it's creative, it's geared towards helping, empowering others. The Happiness Handbooks is an example. Something else that I'm finalizing
Yeah.
is a series of guidebooks for caregivers. I'm
Oh,
a
okay.
caregiver. Yeah, I take care of two family members,
All right.
and I've been doing this for a long time. I'm a lifelong caregiver, actually. Let me backtrack. My brother has special needs and intellectual disabilities, and I've been taking care of him since I was a child. And then during the COVID lockdown in 2020, my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I cared for her through her cancer treatments while working full-time remotely.
Mm.
And then after that, less than 2 years after that, she was diagnosed with an aneurysm.
Mm.
And yeah, she had to have a craniotomy where they open up her skull and
Mm.
drain the fluid. And then the next day, she had to have an embolization where they close off the blood vessels.
Mm.
And we advocated for extended visiting hours, which is something everyone should know about. You can speak to your patient advocate, healthcare advocate. They have different titles at different hospitals. And we were by my mother's bedside from 8 a.m. to midnight every day for a month. That meant I had to take off work,
Mm-hmm.
and every day for a month. That was the month, right? And then while we were there at the hospital, you went to every appointment. That's something else you can do. You can advocate for your loved one. You can say, I need to be there every day because my mother is elderly or my sibling has special needs. Whoever you're caring for, make sure that you state why you need to be there to help them with the healing process. And in most cases, you will get it. We went to occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech therapy so that
Yep.
we could learn, right, what to do when my mother came home, how to continue these exercises. So, fast forward, the month's over. My mom came home December 24th, 2022. After that, I was still on leave from my job, teaching living environment in high school. Um, I was on leave for 3 months. During that time, we had to help mom relearn everything: how to sit, walk, stand, feed herself, clothe herself, all the hygiene, all the activities of daily living. That's what we call them in the health field,
Yeah.
activities of daily living. Then I returned to work, and you know what happens when the primary teacher's out of the room, Josiah. That's right, a whole lot of nothing. And so I got my students ready because of these guidebooks that I created. I was able to return to work as a caregiver. I was still caring for my mother, even though I was working full time. As soon as I got home, I had to get back to the caregiving. I was able to prepare my students in 3 months. I got back in March.
Mm-hmm.
April, May, and June. Got them ready for the regions. I had a 94% pass rate on the
Hey,
environment.
3 months?
Yes. In 3 months, I got them ready. That meant, Josiah, I had no weekends. I worked every Saturday, tutored every morning before school, every day after school.
Oh man.
But I did what I had to do. And then that was the year. That was it for me. After that, after
Yeah.
having gone through that experience, I was like, this is it. I'm pursuing my writing and my creating full time. I retired and now I'm
Yeah.
happy to say, do you know? Oh my God, Josiah, I'm telling you, the world opened up for me as you know, as a creative, that when you have more time, it's not just time to yourself, but it's time to become. Time
Right.
to become. And I pursued my writing full time. The guidebooks are almost done. I have 6 out of 8. They're going to be online, as well as meditations. Meditations are a part of them, and video introduction for each guidebook. Everything's going to be digital. And I've also been writing songs, Josiah. I'm a
Uh-oh.
songwriter.
Uh-oh.
I'm a songwriter. I've copyrighted several,
Oh,
and I'm
okay.
sending them out. Yep.
Okay, okay, okay.
And
We're gonna get
so
OD
that's what I
Terrace on the
mean.
track.
Oh my God, Josiah, it's the most fulfilling thing in the world for me right now is to pursue all the different forms of writing.
Hey, all right, all right.
All the different forms of writing. As
It
you know,
seems that it's reached something we have in common because I'm pursuing all the different forms of publishing. So,
talk to
uh,
me about your publishing.
I mean, well, we have right now we have 7 magazines which cover almost every genre.
Hmm.
So, if yeah, look, if you have any short stories, don't hesitate to send them over. Get you out
Okay.
there get you out there in the flesh.
Poetry too? Do you do
Of
poetry
course,
as well?
poetry. We got poetry. We have memoirs, autobiographies.
Wow.
Fantasy. We even have a magazine called Philosophy by 7 Story Publishing, where you can write essays on political, cultural, societal
Mm.
observations, and propose some possible solutions. You know, and so we pretty much cover everything. We got the bases covered.
That's
You know.
amazing. And when you say we, do you have a writing partner or a publishing partner?
Well, when I say we, I mean me, myself, and I. So,
I love it. Okay.
but hey, I gotta manifest the team though. So
That's right. That's right. That's right,
yeah, me,
Josiah.
myself, and I at the moment. But
That's right. Good for you.
yeah. But anyway, let's go
Mm.
on to the next question.
Sure.
Well, all right, I guess we'll go to this one. So, what's the most difficult thing about being a writer, in your opinion?
Mm, that's a great question. I think for me, what this is what I know is true as a caregiver, that my writing, I it's the concept of time.
Mm,
The concept of time. And when I say the concept of time, I mean that time is different for everyone and how we perceive it. And for me, what I do is I focus on pockets of time. I don't necessarily always have huge chunks of time, but if I can find a pocket of time, I have everything saved on my phone in my Google Drive. I know the folders, what I'm working on. If not if, but when I receive inspiration and downloads, I'm filling in, I'm writing down ideas, and then um depending on the day and what the structure of the day look how it looks, then I'm able to sit maybe for 2 hours at a time and fill it in. Like for example, for the guidebooks that I've been working on, I just submitted 5 and 6 to my digital desktop publisher, the 5th one and the 6th one. And because I took such great advantage of the pockets of time in the past, I didn't realize that I had already had most of them done. All I had to
mm.
do was go back, move some things around, fill some things in.
Mhm.
and then they were able to be sent out. And that's the thing that happens because I've changed how I feel about time. I no longer feel like I need, you know, days at a stretch to work on something. I can just keep taking advantage of the moments that I find, the pockets, put some ideas down, and then keep going back to it. So then when I look at it maybe a month later, 2 months later, I have more than I realize.
Mhm.
Um, so for me, the hardest thing I would say was in the past adjusting to having, adjusting from rather having more hours at a stretch to having pockets. But now I find that because I'm making the most of these pockets of time, that I have more done than I would have had years ago, because having more time didn't necessarily mean I was making the most of it.
Right.
Now, yeah, you know what I mean? So,
Uh-huh.
yeah, now I have to do 7 and 8 this coming week. I already looked at them. They're almost done. I'm just
Mm,
gonna go back, move some things around, tweak it a little bit, but that challenge, what I thought was a challenge, turned out to be a great opportunity for me to create a different system and a
mm,
different way that I interact with time. And that's what I want all writers to understand, that whatever challenge we experience, and I know, is an opportunity, because the challenge of having to care for two family members, and my mother in particular, two life threatening illnesses, was the opportunity for me to create something to empower other caregivers.
right.
And I I'm almost going to start crying, because today, when I was in my doing my spiritual practice,
Mhm.
I was giving thanks. I gave thanks, not that my mother had to suffer. No, no, no. Please
Right.
don't misconstrue. I gave thanks for the experience, because of what I got out of it, what my mother got out of it, and now the fact that I'm able to share something with others who may be going through similar circumstances, in that they feel, okay, this is what I know is true.
Mhm.
Caregivers are feeling overwhelmed, anxious, frustrated, and depressed. Sometimes
Mhm.
all at once. Sometimes
Yeah.
all at once. Sometimes, it's a mix. But
Yeah.
those are the feelings. And I remember when I was caring for my mom through her cancer, while teaching remotely and on breaks, going to my room and creating these tools. I remember I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I knew that I needed something to get, not just to get through the day, but to grow, to create something. And that's when, the thing about writers, we create through the pain, and because
Mhm.
of the pain, and because of the pain,
Right.
and because of it. Right? Because there is something in the pain. There's a lesson, and that's saying there's no way out, there's only through.
Mhm.
100%. There is a lesson there, and the lesson is what we learn about ourselves,
Right.
right? And what we can share from what I know, because through that experience, through the past 5 years, I I became, and I'm still becoming, right? It's a process, ongoing. I became better. And when I say better, I mean to myself.
Right.
To myself first. My relationship with myself became
Mm,
better, um, in the sense that I became more compassionate with myself, more forgiving with myself, and also establishing better boundaries.
mm.
Better boundaries is like, no,
Right.
no. Sorry, not sorry. You know, you know what I mean? No.
Yeah.
Being able to say no because I want to spend time with myself.
Right.
Whatever that is, whether it's writing, editing, or dreaming,
Mhm.
or drawing. I'm also an illustrator. I created
Ah.
some series I'll tell you about.
Oh my god.
Whether or
All the things you
drawing.
think you know somebody. Now she's just
Right?
extraordinaire, like
Boom.
extraordinaire, okay. The
You
writer,
know?
singer, songwriter. I guess.
Yeah. That's the thing. And that's what I learned is that this experience taught me so much about time and what it means to me and how I'm using my time, manipulating my time, making the
Mhm.
most of my time, how I'm being good to myself up here. And that all for me had to do with time. And, as a caregiver, time, like I said, it can be tricky, but we can master it. And that's what I focus on is
Right.
helping caregivers master it. There's a way, there's always a way, because there's no
Mhm.
way I could have created all the different things I've created if I hadn't found a way
Mhm.
to master time and create mental freedom for myself.
Right, right. I definitely understand the trials and tribulations of being a caregiver
You
because
want tell me about
there
your experience.
I mean I just, like, I understand the concept, it's
Yeah.
like you're spending all that time caring for others, but who's caring for you, in that sense. So it's
And
just, you know, to be able to establish those boundaries and to, just create space for yourself in this world.
yes, Josiah.
It's just,
Yes.
it's always a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And it's a process. And it's a
Oh yeah,
process,
definitely. Mhm. All right, we
And
got a couple minutes left, and I do want
okay.
to, fulfill on the, promise that I provide in these interviews, and that is to
Sure.
give you the opportunity to promote yourself and tell people where they can find you, and
Oh.
uh, put your talents on full display, and let the world know that La-Verne Paris is here to stay. You know,
Oh. First of all, let me say, Josiah, again, how proud I am of you and proud with you to be a part of this and to see how you just come into your own. And I can't wait to see what you do next. Okay, so here, Laverne Paris, Happiness Handbooks, available on Amazon.
right?
And then here's something else I created: one-liners, empower poetry,
Okay,
uplifting, empowering poetry. That's also available, and people can find me. I have a website, Laverne Paris, Laverne, no dash, right?
right.
Paris Life Coach at gmail.com. They can find me there. That's my email, Laverne Paris
Mhm.
Life Coach at gmail.com. My website, um, Laverne Paris Life Coach.com.
Right.
And I'm happy to work with people and empower them because there's always a way for us to live our dreams and live our purpose. We can all do that. There's always a way. There's always a way. There's always a way. Because I always reflect back on our great ancestor, Harriet Tubman,
Mhm.
and it breaks my heart when people use her name in the butt of jokes that I see often in our
Oh
films.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
heartbreaking because why would we, or why would they rather, put down our great ancestor who gave us a life of freedom that we would never have had? We
Mm.
would never have had without her. And what people fail to understand is that slavery was literally hell on earth. Slavery and Reconstruction, and literally, literally, literally hell on earth. And there's nothing to joke about a supernatural woman, human being, who escaped slavery and helped countless others escape that living hell without the technology that we have today.
Mhm.
She had her powerful mind and her powerful spirit and her powerful faith. So, if, not if, since, because our great ancestor was able to create our future, create our future, of course we can create the life we want. Of course we can. That's not to say, of course, we're going to have to overcome struggles and challenges and adversities and hostility and
Mhm.
violence. But I have to emphasize whatever we are going through is not even an iota, not even an iota of what our great ancestors overcame.
Mhm.
We have to draw on their strength. We have to draw on their determination, and they are here for us. It's a
Mhm.
matter of belief. Everything is a matter of belief. Everything.
Right.
And however we feel, the fact remains that those who came before us found a way, and we will too.
All right. And
That's
I
right.
think that is a perfect way to, as the perfect end note. We will
Oh,
find a way. And I'd like
thank
to
you,
thank
Josiah.
you for, coming on down and, interviewing with little old seven-story publishing. And I'd like to thank the one or two people that, were popping in and out every, once in a while. We love you and see you on the next one. But for now, this will be the end of our, double decker. And,
Okay.
what's on the replay? What's up?
All right. Thank you, Josiah.
Of
Thank you,
course.
everyone.
All right.
Bye.